little ones. I'm Princess Guinevere. What are your names?
A little while ago, Glitch's newest series came out, The Knights of Guinevere, and as expected, when you look at it and how the internet reacted, you're going to get about two types of videos for the most part. The first are people who are reacting to the show and treating it like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And don't get me wrong, I found the pilot to be engaging and intriguing, so I'm not slamming that. I could go into detail with my gripes with it, but at this point it would be nitpicks, and that's not the point of this video. Rather, the other type of video is, and that's the fact that so many people are pointing out how this show is directly calling out Disney. And that's certainly a valid interpretation. I mean, Disney is pretty much the poster rat of corporate greed, even to the point of, depending on who you ask, they have ruined a lot of goodwill due to incompetence, bad business decisions, and taking advantage of their audiences via nostalgia. Hell, Dana Terrace, the name sounds familiar, is the creator of The Owl House, and if you know Disney treated that show, well...
I could come up with any story. I was pissed off one day, and this became a cathartic release.
And if anyone has a right to be pissed off at Disney, it'd be Dana. So, no wonder so many people see the Disney critique, and dare I say mudslinging, and see it as, yeah, it's true. It's practically on the nose, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially when it comes to entertainment. But to me, I feel like there's another company you could really apply the same thing here to, especially in recent times. Again, not saying you can't see Disney being the real target here, but sometimes things can represent more than one subject at a time, and this is a good subject to talk about for a video topic. So, I'm MangaKamen and...
Let's go!
Oh, why hello! Didn't notice you there.
Now, if you somehow missed the pilot for Knights of Guinevere, which I don't know how you could, the damn thing managed to get millions of views in its first day, go watch it before watching this video. I'll be here. But if you're too lazy to leave or just like the sound of my melodic voice, I guess I can give a quick summary, otherwise just hit up the next chapter. The Knights of Guinevere is a sci-fi psychological thriller with elements of dystopian future, set on a floating planet-spanning amusement park called Park Planet. It's shown that showcases a futuristic world with a dark underbelly, which... a few of my favorite pieces of media have similar elements to that. You can see why this caught my attention. We're introduced early on to the park's creator, Orville Park, an obvious ex-fee to the late Walt Disney, and we're introduced to his daughter Olivia, with Orville presenting the park to Olivia as a present. We're also introduced rather gruesomely to the titular Guinevere, the park's android mascot, as she attempts to escape. But years later, we're shown that the planet below Park Planet is a dystopian junkyard that practically lives off the scraps from Park Planet, gathering scrapped up materials from the trash above, repurposing merchandise, and dealing with some blue disease. So basically...
Merchandising! Where the real money from the movie is made.
But with working off what is essentially slave labor. We're soon introduced to our actual main characters, a scrap scavenger named Frankie and a former android surgeon for the park, Andy. The two once snuck into Park Planet, encountering Guinevere, who has the ability to remember any guest at any time. One day, Frankie fishes out a damaged Guinevere android from the murky depths, and that starts everything. Obviously, I'm leaving out a ton of details for the fact that if you haven't watched the pilot, you should, and I don't want to spoil everything here. But what we're looking at is the setup for a psychological thriller that has dystopian future setting that explores the themes of hope, desperation, consequences of technology, and of course, the oppression of those who are stuck in the muck while the rich fat cats are above throwing their trash to us. This is stuff that we've seen all the time. And with there being an obvious call out to big corporations to Disney here, I believe that there's a lot more that this can be applied to, especially in today's climate.
You chose your side.
I chose a job. Ass. I got rent.
If you are familiar with my channel, one thing you realize is that I love video games. Like, I enjoy the medium. I love playing various games, I enjoy talking about them, and I enjoy looking into them deeper and deeper. I'm hoping real soon to really work on some new gaming content for you guys. But why am I bringing this up? While the actual show has the stone throwing aimed at Disney, I feel like there's a lot more that can be applied to the basic concept of mascot-based corporations. And why I'm more or less trying to liken this to stuff like Nintendo. Again, unless you've been up in the Park Planet yourself, Nintendo has been kind of on a warpath as of late. When you look at stuff like Knights of Guinevere and Nintendo, you can piece together a lot of sketchy stuff happening that correlates to taking advantage of anyone and everyone they can. You only need to look at the Switch and Switch 2, with the prices being hiked up for the first one, and not just for the consoles, but for the games as well. Hell, if you're expecting people to pay $100 for the Virtual Boy recreation, you got some big issues.
No, Mario.
It's one of the worst things that Nintendo has ever made, and they're doing whatever they can to get as much money out of you, the consumer. Need I bring up the time that Nintendo was going to charge people $10 for a demo/walkthrough of the Switch 2? You know, welcome tour. Or how about the recent stuff with DK Bonanza, where Nintendo thought it'd be a good idea to charge $20 for the DLC, which essentially just gave you a new stage, a very slight new mode of playing, and essentially just challenges. Nothing else, and for $20. Or charging $40 for the Mario Galaxy game ports. You know, 20-year-old games, they're not even remastered either. Or something that hurts my very heart and soul, Pokemon Legends Z to A, where they have a DLC day one that is $30 more for the game, and they even lock content where you have to play competitively to actually access. God damn it, I just want Delphox to be good! Is that too much to ask, Nintendo? I think you get the point. Nintendo and other companies like Disney and such are effectively weaponizing not only the goodwill that they've built up over the course of decades, but they are also holding on to several properties that have a lot of sentimental meaning to plenty of people. Need we sing the ballads of Star Fox, Earthbound, Kid Icarus, and probably the worst victim of all, F-Zero. It almost feels unfair considering that a lot of properties are just left to be sat on, and that's not even going to the multiple lawsuits that Nintendo loves to pull out just to prevent people from doing things. Now, I do not like Palworld for many reasons, but I can't agree with Nintendo attempting to copyright fricking gameplay mechanics. That's just dystopian. It was only 7 years ago that Nintendo would go after YouTubers for using their gameplay and content in their videos, even going so far as to make a YouTube Nintendo Creators Program. Now, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up, and we're not even really scratching the surface of all the stuff that Nintendo did, you'll be in my prayers, Pokemon Uranium, but the point is that when it comes to corporations, they consume, they produce, and they throw away. And they'll do whatever they can in order to do that. They'll exploit any legal loophole, use anyone, and will take away anything they can in order to get another dollar and save another. So you get something similar that's happening in Knights of Guinevere. We get plenty of scenes where we see people being forced to work for Park Planet for some degree. Whether it be repurposing thrown away scrap from the park itself, being forced to work for the company, and all the while living in squalor that may or may not be causing some sort of disease that causes people to cough up blue Gatorade. Companies, whether fictional or not, will do whatever they can in order to save a dollar, especially if they can bleed it from a quarter. Who cares if actual human beings are forced to build homes out of the junk from above? The corporation only cares what you can do for them. At least as long as you're useful, whether as an employee or customer, you're just a tool until you break, only to be tossed to the side into the trash can. And all of this is under the guise of being a wonderful, colorful world filled with countless characters abound, cute, beautiful, or handsome people, and they are nothing more than a mask ready to be tossed away too. Whether it be a princess with various different forms, a mouse in red shorts, or an Italian plumber, they are but a mask for the corporate underbelly of greed, willing to crush anything and everything. And man, did I get dark quick! But that's really the appeal of these kinds of stories now, isn't it? Where behind the curtain, behind the glitz and glamour, and behind the colorful mascots, there lies a dark truth that the masses become blind to, whether because they think it's more convenient, or because they're idiots. So you can take Disney, which basically sucks the souls out of its IPs and its employees, or Nintendo, who's doing the same thing to its consumers and fans. Knights of Guinevere is a commentary that can apply to a lot of different companies, especially in modern day. Now, I want to take some time and really talk about the corporatism critique and how it's been used in the past. And don't get me wrong, we'll be tying it back to the Knights of Guinevere because there are lots of parallels.
Intermission time.
With this type of content, you can really make this critique out for almost any corporation. Now, while that is true, I will say I'm not the biggest fan of critique the capitalist corporate pigs. Not because I don't think it can work, nor do I think it's applicable. Hell, I still get nightmares remembering that one time Disney sued a family for putting Spider-Man on a kid's grave. Reality is much more gross than fiction at times, my friends. No, the reason why I don't really gel with it so much is that it's simple to just devolve into an anti-capitalistic rant that effectively just becomes more message than story. But that's more on the execution, and I'm not going to be disingenuous and say there aren't a number of stories I believe have done a good job on the corporate greed critique, and how that can be reflective in Knights of Guinevere as well. Probably one of the earliest examples I've ever experienced with this would have to be Final Fantasy VII.
All right, now hurry up. We have to take care of this place.
Why? What's wrong with this place?
And if you know anything about FF7, you should be familiar with the Shinra Corporation. Hell, it's probably the quintessential dystopian megacorp of all gaming. I mean in fictional sense. where it presents itself as the provider of energy and prosperity with its Mako reactors, when in reality it's draining the very lifeblood of the planet. While at the same time they're exploiting the slums of Midgar, to the point where they're willing to kill everyone by dropping the upper plate of a city onto the slums to kill some rebels. About 6 of them. Midgar's upper city is often touted as a gleaming, technologically advanced utopia, especially for the elites. The slums are practically a wasteland filled with criminals and monsters, including the dreaded evil houses.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Not to mention from all the pollution that's created too for some reason. All the while, Shinra will use their own private military program to help them up, and they'll prop up figures like Sephiroth to be the heroes of the war against Wutai. And what's worse is that in the remake, we see that there's some pretty strong propaganda to showcase why Shinra is great in changing the world for the better, even being able to brainwash their own employees.
a message to the bastards bleeding our planet dry. Think they got it? Heard it loud and clear? Y'all's masters?
We will not submit to intimidation or violence, but work together for peace and prosperity. That is how civilized people change the world.
That's right.
That is the Shinra Creed.
And obviously, when you look at this in comparison to Knights of Guinevere, you can see that just like Park Planet's amusement park thriving on the suffering of the junkyard scavengers, Shinra's utopia of Midgar is built on the backs of slum dwellers and exploiting the planet itself. It's a utopian facade, either through the beautiful mascot's face or a silver-haired mama boy. They're both masking the reality of the harm they're causing, and you can see this be done in another anime called Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
Oh fuck, not this bullshit again.
Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is my bread and butter on this channel, and you should know that I have a bit of a love and hate relationship with the series, especially with 5Ds. One thing I absolutely love is the setting that the series starts with. Effectively before the series even begins, an event called Zero Reverse occurred, which effectively caused a disastrous tectonic shift that basically split the iconic Domino City into two, Neo Domino City and the Satellite. And what was the cause of this? Well, Kaiba Corporation, which if you know Seto Kaiba...
Fire whoever designed that bottle. Kaiba Corp's products shouldn't bend that easily.
He only makes the greatest business decisions.
Then your cards will be launched into space on a Kaiba Corp satellite. If there is intelligent life out there, then let's teach him how to duel.
Though, to Kaiba's credit, he was right about there being intelligent life in outer space in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Verse. It just took a few decades for aliens to actually be a thing in the anime. But after Zero Reverse, Neo Domino City was rebuilt, made out to be a utopia focused on entertainment, more specifically riding duels. However, Satellite was practically left in a squalor slum, with its inhabitants forced to live amongst the ruins, work at factories sorting scrap, and even being treated as criminals, being reliant on the scraps of Neo Domino City just to survive. Like, do I have to say what a direct line here is? Using popular duelists like Jack Atlas as the face of Neo Domino hides the systematic oppression and the exploitation of the residents of Satellite. Hell, I even talked about Sector Security, which actively oppresses the people, making sure no one can actually leave the satellite. The two shows have an excellent example of using flashy mascots to distract from the exploitation they have going on. And hell, even the mascots aren't safe in that regard. The moment that Jack Atlas loses publicly, it gets exposed that he was born and raised in the satellite and is immediately tossed to the side and ostracized. Or if you're into the more gritty stuff, Cyberpunk 2077 has Night City being dominated by Arasaka and Militech, projecting innovation and opportunity while actually engaging in ruthless power grabs, human experimentation, and the exploitation of the city's underclass, promising a utopian dream. And in Knights of Guinevere, we see ads promising a brighter future, for an exorbitant price. Now, when you look at all these examples, how these properties deal with the mask of joy over the ugly truth is done differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. I applaud it, actually. The point is there are a number of stories that use a shiny veneer to expose a rotten core. Whether it's Shinra's Mako feud propaganda, Neo Domino's dueling stars, or Arasaka's neon-lit promises, these worlds like Knight of Guinevere show that corporations slap a smiling mascot onto their greed to keep us distracted from the junkyard below. It's not just about calling out capitalistic corporate pigs. It's about stories that make us question the cost of the utopia that corporations are selling. And Knights of Guinevere nails that, using Guinevere's cheery face to mirror our own real-world Disneys and Nintendos.
Will she ever find her knights?
Park Planet is all glitz and glamour, but Knights of Guinevere's thriller DNA does have its own version of critique of the false smiling face hiding the corporate dystopia. Hell, you can even look at Guinevere herself, the main mascot of Park Planet. While she's a cute android mascot, she's a walking, talking surveillance tool. She's taught around to have the ability to remember every guest's face. And while that sounds like a fun perk for Park Planet visitors, if you tilt your lens just a little bit, you realize it's a creepy database of personal information used to keep tabs on everyone who visits the park. And when you really consider the climate of the day with a lot of governments and corporations, even YouTube itself rolling out measures to get as much information on us as possible, and if you apparently could fool the measures with Death Stranding 2, it's becoming more and more like fiction, and that's kind of scary.
Lisa, it's not like the government is listening to everybody's conversation. We're fugitives. We should just lay low till we get to Seattle.
The government actually found someone we're looking for! Yeah, baby, yeah!
So, it makes things a little more devious. Then there's Frankie and Andy. They're not exactly fighting the park yet in the pilot, but they're more or less haunted by the park. And not just because it's floating overhead dumping trash that could easily kill someone by some brat throwing their smoothie away off the side of it. Frankie has an obsession with fixing the broken Guinevere android, and it's not about rebellion, it's more about grappling with hope and betrayal where the corporation controls everything, including a person's dreams. And Andy? She was working for the corporation, trying to scrape by and hopefully one day escape, even if she has to work herself to the bone, working into a sickness and forced to deal with rejects from Fazbear Entertainment.
What's, going on there?
Through the characters, we get the angle that highlights how the show makes the corporate exploitation feel intimate and oppressive, with a more character-driven focus with storytelling. Then there's Park Planet itself, a floating amusement park that's practically a love letter to the corporate hypocrisy. The show's visuals hammer this home. Sparkling rides and colorful banners scream fun for all, but the camera lingers on the cracks in the facade, literally with rusted edges and flickering holograms. One scene shows massive Park Planet billboard promising endless joy, only for the camera to pan down to the junkyard's toxic sludge. Yeah, it's not subtle, but it's effective, showing how the corporate's utopian pitch is built on lies and decay. And from what we've seen so far from the pilot, it doesn't just showcase the greed of corporations, it opens up different ideas that oddly enough can tie into the current landscape of our own world. Park Planet's crumbling facade gives way to the showcase that corporations will sell you a dream while pickpocketing you and poisoning the world at the same time. All with a warm smile! It's a wake-up call wrapped up in an animated thriller, and it's no wonder this show is becoming a massive hit because it's something that anyone can take advantage of. Because it's something that anyone can relate to. Even I, with my own Nintendo example, saw that happening and made it up in the video. Though with everything I said, it's safe to say that much like Glitch's other work, Knights of Guinevere will probably be a banger of a series, especially when you consider the apathy of corporations happening on the internet nowadays. Guinevere's smile, Park Planet's glitter, all hiding a junkyard of greed and control, suffering everyone who lives amongst that trash. It's a story that doesn't just point fingers at Disney or even Nintendo, it's a mirror for any corporation peddling dreams while picking our pockets. It's a tale that we've seen before, but Knights of Guinevere's thriller edge and near-face visuals make it feel raw and real, especially when our own world's starting to look like Park Planet's data-hungry dystopia. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the characters are at least likable.
Yeah! And you hit like an old man, old man! Oh, wait.
No. That was good.
So, let me ask you, next time you see a cheery mascot, ask yourself this. What's the catch? Drop your thoughts down below. What other stories nail this corporate critique? And do you think Knights of Guinevere did it pretty well? I'm MangaKamen, and until next time, keep questioning those shiny facades. Later.